welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. This is a Wake Up Call spotlight special on SMU. I've had the opportunity this season to speak with their quarterback, Mr. Kevin Jennings, as well as most recently with linebacker Alexander Kilgore. And now I am here with somebody who's no stranger to the broadcast in the American and in the ACC. I've been with Rhett Lashlee since he came to SMU as the Mustangs head football coach, and I'm very happy to have him back on the show. Rhett, how are we doing?
Doing good, Dan. Always good to be on the show with you and being playing meaningful games in November here.
Absolutely. And, I've said that, in my opinion, the best three-loss team in the country right now, the SMU Mustangs. I'm not saying that because you and I are on the air. I'm saying it because I've said it for the last few weeks here. What you did against Baylor in that game to start off the season, 48-45, and then, obviously the other matchups that you had along the way, I think there's a lot to be said, and we'll get into the wins, but I want to go into that Baylor game. Your takeaways about the game, how it ended, and maybe what it showed about your team so early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, we had a brand new team, and that was week 2 for us. We were replacing 9 starters on defense. 42 of our 85 scholarship players are new. And, we had a 2-touchdown lead with 8 minutes to go. And we've typically closed those games out. We just weren't able to get stops in that game. And credit them. They got obviously a talented quarterback and receiving core, but and we ended up losing in double overtime. And so, but we kind of felt like coming into this season, particularly with all the new faces and most likely on defense as well, that our team would get better as the year went on if we could just find a way to hang in there through the early parts of the season. We also didn't have Jordan Hudson in that Baylor game, who's obviously proven to be a pretty good wideout for us because we lost him just from start the season. We didn't have our 2 starting linebackers. So we were playing with a lot of guys out, with a lot of new faces, and we didn't close a game out. And I think our team learned some things from that game, but we've gotten better as the year went on. And, again, you want to be playing your best football at the end, and we've put ourselves in position with 2 weeks to go to be in contention. And a lot of that's because early in the season, we learned some lessons. This team eventually came together, created an identity. And then a lot of guys had to play early. True freshmen or new guys that weren't starters had to play early, and now they're helping us with depth here late in the season.
Yeah, like you said, to be in a game like that in double overtime and you didn't have those players, you talk about having a new team, you talk about some guys not being available, and you still brought it all the way to double overtime without them being there. So it says a lot about the team, especially early on, and how you gelled so quickly. So to that point, how does a team full of newcomers and going through injuries gel so rapidly? What did you see in the culture and environment of your team that got you to a point where you could come together a lot sooner than maybe some other teams do?
Yeah, I just think it's the culture we've been able to create here. I think it's the returning guys, the Kevin Jennings, the PJ Williams, the RJ Marylands, the Matt Hibners, and Isaiah Wakobe's, Ahmad Moses, Cam Robertson's, all those guys. We lost a lot, but we had a handful of guys, a remnant, if you will, of guys returning that know kind of how we've been winning here. And so I think you credit them with a lot of leadership. I think you also credit our coaching staff with who we brought in. More than half of those new players were high school players, but it's the best high school class we've ever had. So your Jalen Coopers of the world, your Tyron Pollys and so forth that are now helping us and had to help us some early in the year, are playing. They're the right kind of young men. Like they bought into the culture. And then the transfers we did bring in, particularly on the D-line and some other places, I think you credit our staff with finding the right kind of young men to bring in here. And you credit those kids with adapting to how we do things, because you don't start the season 2-2 in the non-conference with all the injuries we had and losing 2 fourth quarter leads in those losses, and then go on a 6-game stretch in the conference and go 5-1 and find yourself, in contention late if you don't have a good culture and guys bought in. Because the way they handled adversity, we've not been perfect. It's been harder this year, but one thing this team does, they respond, and they respond to everything because I think they bought into the team aspect.
Well, and when I spoke recently to Alexander Kilgore, he said it all starts with the head man. I asked him about the positivity. I asked him about the culture. I asked him about why is SMU so consistently good and not occasionally great. And he came back to you with it and said it starts with Rhett Lashlee. I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, we do it together. It starts with guys like Alexander Kilgore, who's a junior, been here playing for 3 years, and is a team captain. And he was one of those guys we didn't have in that Baylor game. He got hurt in the first game of the year, just like Jordan Hudson. And so he missed the Baylor game, the Missouri State game, the TCU game. And not only did we lose his playmaking ability, we lost a lot of his leadership on the field. But for him to say something like that, I think just shows you that we're all in this together. Nobody's more important than anyone else, from myself to our coaches to our players. We're a true family. We have fun. We know it's hard. We respect how hard it is to win. And we go through tough times together, but it makes us better so we can enjoy the really good times. And so I think his answer probably tells you all you need to know about why our guys have been able to stick together.
Yeah, you talk about sticking together, and on Halloween, right at the end of October, we saw a contract extension for you, which has you adding much more time to your deal with SMU and being there for the future, because you're one of those names that comes up, right? You do well, you have success, and people like to talk about you. So, two-part question: why SMU? Why sign that extension and continue to be there? I know you and I have had some fireside chats, so I could probably say some things to that, but I'd love to get your words on it in the here and now of why you want to stay at SMU. And then secondly, what do you think about hearing so many people put your name in their mouth without really knowing anything about your decision making?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I didn't know that. I didn't even put two and two together. That was Halloween when that information kind of broke. You know, Here's what I'll say. Why SMU? SMU is a destination job now, and I'm just blessed to get to be the head coach at the right time here. A lot of hard work over the last 30, 40 years, particularly the last 10 to 15 years, to get our program back to this national stage and where we are, and then ultimately in the a Power Four conference in the ACC, and the facilities we have and all the resources and support. It didn't just happen overnight, but there is an incredible amount of alignment here right now. We are all in on SMU athletics and SMU football and what it can do to help our great university continue to grow at the highest level. And that starts with our president, Jay Hartzell, and our board chair, David Miller, and everyone else that, our board. We got board members on athletic, Bill Armstrong, and others that have just been so supportive, not just with their resources, but with their commitment to we want to do it the right way at the highest level. And so when you have that kind of buy-in at a place that is in Dallas, that has the resources and has been supporting what we've been building, we got here and we've been building for the last, now this is our fourth year, and a lot of what we've done has been a lot of firsts, and there's something fun to building something. And so the why is, this is a destination job now with all the support and resources, and we're all in alignment. Secondly, SMU chose us first. They were the first place to let, give me a chance to be a head coach. And that matters to us, that loyalty and that belief and that faith they have in us, and then to want us to continue to, in what we're building and share that vision. So, and then for me, it's like, my kids are in ninth grade. My boys, that is, they'd love to graduate where we are. They're happy. We live in Dallas. We're happy where we are. They've moved 10 times in 15 years. Yeah. And so it's just from a timing standpoint, it all adds up to this has become home, and this is where we want to be right now and what we're committed to building. And so, there was about a month there that internally there was no gray area that this is where we wanted to be. I know there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And look, when your alma mater is one of those schools, you're going to be linked to it. When a place you spent and won a national title and all your kids were born, you're going to be linked to it, and others. And but this is where we wanted to be. And it's not that we don't love those other places. It's just the timing's right. And if I was going to go out and try to get the kids to stay on our roster, hey, Kevin Jennings, play your final year here, become the school times all-time leading passer next year in every statistical category, from Dallas. Hey, go out, and this 26 class is going to be better than our last class. Like, they're a top 25 class in recruiting. Hey, you guys need to sign the first Wednesday in December. And the 27 kids and the transfer kids we're going to be recruiting, if I'm going to ask them to buy into the vision that I'm selling them, hey, this is the vision we have here. We built it to here. We feel like we're just getting started. There's a lot of work still to be done, but we can win a national championship here. And here's the process. Then I got to be all in on that. I got to buy into that same vision. And so that was the why. And then in terms of my name being put out there, it's again, like I said, some of it's association that just happens. It's just as a compliment to our kids, our program, our staff for the success we've had here. My name's the one being used, but it's representing everyone that's helped us go 36 and 15 in the last 4 years and do some of the things we've done more than it is anything about me.
And when you do get, if and when those phone calls come in from other schools, I mean, is it a quick conversation of, hey, I'm happy here. I appreciate it. Thank you for thinking of me, but I'm not interested? Or do you at least hear them out, when this all comes to be? Because again, we live in a world where, I'm different from the typical media. And I think that's why our relationship is as strong as it is, because on and off the air, I'm the same human being. When we hear all these things, I always like to vet it, and I like to go to the source, and I like to say, okay, did it happen? Did it not happen? So when the phone calls come in, is this hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I appreciate it, but no, thank you. Or is it like, hey, I'll at least hear it out and I'll weigh my options. I got to talk to my family. I know that you're a family person. You care about your family's thoughts in this process and not having them have to move again. So how do you address the things when they do come in and you do get those phone calls, because it is a compliment to you and your staff, like you said?
Yeah, I mean, I think every year is different. I don't think you can say every year or every call is the same. And it's weird because this year it started into September, early October, right? And you're like, man, we're like not even, we hadn't even played a conference game yet.
Yeah.
But this year, we had a pretty good piece that this is where we want to be. And my wife wanted to be here. My kids wanted to be here. I wanted to be here. We believe in what we're doing. SMU did a great job immediately with being proactive and making sure that we felt like wanted, like, no, we want you and your staff to continue building what we're building here and being a part of what we're trying to do here. And like I said, there's great alignment. And so there wasn't a lot of desire or, hey, let's listen to this or that. And and you try to always be respectful because, like, look, one place is where I grew up. It's where I went to school. I love that place that my name was being associated with. And I want the best for that place. And there's a large part of my life I grew up probably saying, man, I would love to be the head coach there someday. But at this point in time, this is where we're supposed to be. And so when the timing works out that it's not right for me, I hope it's someone great that'll take care of my alma mater, right? And other places too, like, you want the best for both situations, but there wasn't a scenario where, hey, let's listen, let's leverage, let's do this. Like, no, this is where we wanted to be. We didn't have a lot of conversations with our team. Everybody kept asking me, what are you telling the guys? I'm not telling them anything because there's nothing going on, And so, but I know that's easier said than done in this world where it's all over social media and there's some information out there that's accurate and there's a lot that's not, and you can't really speak to much of it. But now, I mean, sometimes depends on where you are in life, but this is just the timing this is where we're supposed to be. This is where we want to be. And fortunately that we're wanted and we're all in on being great here at SMU. And we're humbled to get to be, a big part of what we're trying to do here.
Well, yeah, and you said SMU is proactive. Just what that meant to you, because like you said, they were the first to offer you a head coaching opportunity, and now they came to you and said, "Hey, we want to sign this extension. We want to show you that we choose you again." To have a school that you're at be proactive, and also, you and I talked about new leadership, right? And a new athletic director came in Damon Evans. So bring me into all of that. I mean, the fact that SMU is proactive and the fact that sometimes when an AD comes in, they want their guy. They, maybe they're not as welcoming whether you've won or lost. So the relationship with Damon Evans and the proactive reaction, the proactive action of SMU instead of being reactive.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly a little unexpected, but it means a lot. Just because, look, everybody wants to be wanted. And in our world, you can be not wanted real fast, right? And so,
Yeah.
But yeah, new AD, Damon, we've been getting to know each other for the last 6 months, but this is our first football season together. We've gone through some wins and losses, and for the first time, and then a new president who I think both our president, Jay Hartzell, and Damon Evans have big visions for this place, and I have big visions. So you share those kind of bold, big goal, big vision things with each other, so that helps. But to have them not say, let's see how this thing, because I mean, we were 2-2 when they started talking to me. I'm like, guys, we're 2-2. We've blown 2 fourth quarter leads. Like, are you sure? um, but I think it just, it validated that this is where we want to be. And then when they make you feel like, no, we want to partner with you and we want you to be a part of doing this with us, and we want you to be leading our program, it means a lot. And so really it was more a matter of the next couple of weeks, like, let's just try to think through all the things we need to do for our staff, for our players and recruiting, for like, what do we got to do to continue? Because in the last 2 or 3 years, we've made big jumps here at SMU, but everyone from our leadership down knows we've not even scratched the surface of what we got to get to if we want to compete year in, year out at the highest level. I mean, we've got one Power 4 level recruiting class on our roster and they're true freshmen.
Yeah.
Like, we're still in the infant stages of this transition, and we're being successful, and that's good, but we're not satisfied. And so that's really what the next month became about before something was even announced, was just how do we make sure together we all get this lined up to where we feel like we can go take advantage of the moment.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, to the credit of SMU, I mean, you've relied on community. You've relied on this environment and this culture. I mean, coming into the ACC and the way you come into the ACC, that we're going to rely on our donors as opposed to taking ACC, money right off the bat. We're going to come in and be competitive. There were a lot of people that were not giving SMU the credit, and I thought it was crazy, but you came in to the ACC. You didn't care what the outside noise said, which plays a lot to what type of coach you are and your staff and your student athletes and the faith that they have in themselves and you and in each other. And you've only lost one game in the ACC in almost a full 2 seasons there. I mean, that says a lot. You played for an ACC championship, and a last-second field goal is the only reason why you didn't have it. And you made it to a college football playoff in your first season in the ACC. So I know you're about winning the next game, Rhett, and I know you're focused on that game. But I think we should also take a minute and realize that SMU has done an absolutely incredible, and to a lot of people from the outside, impossible job of winning every single game but one in ACC play. When we talk about regular season play, making it to an ACC championship and going to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get in the middle of the season a chance to stop and think about it much. But yeah, I mean, I think the success we've been able to have right out of the gate, last year what we were able to do was special, something that never been done before. It hadn't been talked about much yet because I don't think people know, but like, we won our 7th game, which confirms we're going to have a winning season in year 2 as well. Yeah. I mean, there's never been a program make the jump to P4 from the G5 and do what we did last year, but there's also never been one that has back-to-back winning seasons to start it. They just, whether it's TCU or Utah or the 4 schools that went to the Big 12, you can look. One of those first 2 years was a losing season, and that's kind of normal. And so what we've been able to do is ahead of schedule, and I think we don't take it for granted. I think it just validates what we all believed when this move happened, is that we belong, we can build something really good, sustainable, and not just a feel-good thing for a flash in the pan, but like long-term. And there's some growing pains with that. But, we're trying to build this not only to win now, but to win for the long haul consistently. And I think the start we've been able to have it validates what we all believe. It kind of gives you confirmation, okay, our vision's not too big, and let's keep pushing for it.
Yeah, it seemed like nationally last year, Oregon was getting all the talk for leaving the Pac-12, go to the Big Ten, and they were so successful. But you also made a massive jump, and you didn't make a jump, like you said, from a power. You made a jump from outside of that, which is even more impressive. You said, we're not even to the point of where we want to be, but things have happened very rapidly and very early. Why do you feel like SMU could make a jump from success in the American, have immediate success in the ACC, be on the national stage, play for an ACC title, have an opportunity in the college football playoff? Why has it happened so quickly, in your opinion, that SMU has immediately gone to the ACC and said, I don't care who your people are and where you're putting all these chips, but you need to put chips on red, and it needs to be a Mustang?
Yeah, I think, one, I won't belabor, I've said we have great alignment. Everybody's committed to it.
Yeah.
It's not like we hope it works. No, we're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. I think, two, the people around our organization, being our donors, our board members, our leadership, the people in our building, our players, our staff. You win with people, and we've had the right people with the right mindset that aren't scared to be bold and step out there and try to do something great. And honestly, I said it last year, like, people, how have you done that? I was like, well, I don't know. No one told us we weren't supposed to. We didn't sit around and go, well, we're not supposed to win. We came in expecting to win. And I think thirdly, our location in Dallas and the recruiting ability, both from the high school ranks now that we're in the ACC and both from the transfer world. But like, we're winning with Dallas kids. We're winning with Kevin Jennings from South Oak Cliff at quarterback, and RJ Maryland from the Dallas area at tight end, and Jordan Hudson, from right down the road from SMU at wide receiver, and on defense, Ahmad Moses, who's one of the best defensive players in the country from right down the road, and Isaiah Wacobia and Cam Robertson. I could go on and on and on. Like, whether they're kids, a lot of those names I mentioned came here from high school and haven't left, but some transferred in. But there were a lot of local Dallas area kids, and that's the long-term blueprint. That's why you see the 25 class that's here. And I mentioned some true freshmen like Tyron Polley from Duncanville and on that are local, and then the 26 class, which I can't talk about, but I think we have 10 of the top 35 players in the Dallas Metroplex committed to SMU in that class. And what I've learned about Dallas kids, both as my time as an OC and a head coach here, is Dallas kids don't want to leave.
Yeah.
They want to stay in Dallas. Dallas is a great place to live. It's one of the best cities in the country. Dallas kids aren't like kids in other big cities or big recruiting hotbed areas around the country that want to leave. Dallas kids want to stay, but until recently, they couldn't because there wasn't an option. The SMU, we weren't doing what we needed to do. Now that we are, it's cool to go to SMU. You can go to SMU. You can play against Miami at homecoming, and you can play at Clemson, and next year you can play at Notre Dame, and in Oklahoma and LSU, and on and on and on. You can play in the college football playoff. You can play on the ABC game in prime time, and you just keep naming the things you can do. You can do everything here you can do somewhere else. And so now they have a reason to stay because the only school within 30 miles of Dallas is winning and playing at the highest level, and that wasn't the case. But kids would love to stay home and play for their city and play in front of their family and play in a city like Dallas and go to school like SMU. And so I think that's not only helped us early on maybe be more competitive, but I think that's also one of the reasons that we feel like we can continue to be competitive.
Yeah, and we've talked about rep in Dallas embracing you embracing the city of Dallas. Before I let you go, I do want to hit a few more points, one of them being the fact that the ACC does not get the credit they deserve. No, the blue bloods of the ACC aren't having a good season when people talk about Clemson and Florida State, but it seems like if they're not doing good, then people don't want to talk about the ACC. I also believe that there are certain networks out there that spread narratives, and they keep that narrative in the preseason all the way through the season. And if they're wrong, they're never going to say it. They're just going to keep perpetuating that. And if I hear one more time that the ACC is a one-bid school, I don't even know. So, because we're looking at a conference right now with a few weeks to go, a couple games to go, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pittsburgh, yourselves at SMU, Duke, Louisville, and Miami are all still viable to play in the ACC title game. Rhett, I would think that a conference that has 6 teams that are still alive, 6 or 7 teams alive, I think that playing meaningful games in November in a conference that's not decided because these teams have good records and they've been all pushing each other, that to me sounds like a dangerous conference. That to me sounds like a multi-bid conference. Tell me if I'm crazy, but your thoughts on the ACC this year?
Yeah, the ACC is better this year than it was last year. And, look, there's a couple things. One, we're not top heavy. And so sometimes that devalues the rest of the group. Whereas some league may be top heavy, so then all of a sudden you act like everybody else in the group's good. And maybe that's true, but maybe it's not, right? And so, look, some of it's warranted. Like, we didn't have a good showing in the non-conference. I already told you we lost 2 games that we had fourth quarter leads in early in the season. But, when I hear, well, there wasn't any marquee wins outside of Miami beating Notre Dame, well, that happened. And Florida State, who's trying to just get bowl eligible in our league, beat Alabama week 1. I'd say that's a marquee win, even if they're not in contention. Like, if one of our last place teams can beat the first place team in the SEC by double digits, then I would think our league has some good depth. but as long, again, the committee does a great job. They're great people. They have a winless job. Like they can't win. No matter what they do,
Yeah,
they can't win. That's my whole thing.
true.
And until we get away from the pageantry of picking and get more into earning, then it's going to be this way. But you know, it just is what it is, and they're doing the best they can. But the goalposts get moved all the time. You know, sometimes it's an opinion and sometimes it's subjective data, but it's not always the same. And so that's what I think makes it hard for fans and people to palate. I think you got four great leagues that America, whether it's a 12-team playoff, a 16-team playoff, or even a 24, which I think would be fantastic because we have 136 schools. 24 is like 11%. It's not watered down. And then now 50 teams, it matters in November what they're doing. But whether it's 12, 16, or 24, America wants to see good representation from the country and those leagues. If they wanted to see, look, the SEC is the best league in the country this year. Everybody can probably agree on that.
Right.
But like if everybody wanted to see an SEC playoff, they just keep watching the SEC regular season because that's why they have conference games. Same with us. So let's get the best 3 or 4 out of all 4 leagues, put them in a playoff, and let them play it out. And you know what? If your league's as good as you say it is, then the depth and what your teams came through should help you in the playoff. And if our team's got as much depth and maybe not as top heavy, then our 4 or 5 teams that are all ranked right now would get in and make some noise. Like, let's let it happen on the field, but let's earn it. And I think that's what America would want. There's a reason they gripe about, you know, the game day distribution. They want it to be spread amongst other conferences because they get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. So it's not a cut to a committee or a cut to other leagues. They're all great. Everybody's great. Like, let's just, it seems too hard to say, hey, if there were 16 teams and 4 got in from each league and then let the best man win, makes too much sense because then there's no politicking or pageantry. Like, teams earned it. And you're also going to get schools that are real willing to play bigger non-conference games now because if you lose a game earlier in the year, it doesn't hurt you. Or if you're like Miami and you win a big game earlier in the year, they just forget about it later. So, like, we'll play those games, and if you win them, great.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you still got your conference to earn your way in.
No, I love it. You know, and speaking with a longtime coach, Randy Etzel, we had that conversation of split the Power Four conferences, take each conference, split them into divisions, and have the winner of each division be the one that goes forward. In that case, like there you are saying, you know, you're echoing pretty much the same thing. You said 24. I mean, 16 or 24. Why would you argue one over the other if you had to choose in an expansion?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, if you go to 16, it doesn't even lengthen the season, you know, and that was kind of the early thoughts in the summer. But, you know, you can't have automatic bids that aren't balanced. It just doesn't make any sense, especially if it's going to be based off TV revenue. But I didn't come up with the 24 deal. The Big Ten did. And, you know, pretty much every league but one has thought that's a great idea because now it gives you a better chance for those spots to be earned. So if you have 24, top 4 teams get in from the Big 4 conferences, that's guaranteed. Well, there's 16. They're going to let 2 group of 5 schools in. Great. More representation, more opportunity for players to make it. There's 18. And now you got 6 at-larges. Notre Dame has a chance until they decide to join a conference someday, if they ever do. But there's 6 at-larges that can play their way in.
Yeah.
It's just like the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or major or you know, soccer over there in Europe. It's like nobody's getting in a room with a bunch of people and looking at data and picking teams. Teams are earning it. This is what you got to do to get in. If you do it, you're in. If you don't, you're not. Some years you have an easier schedule. Some years you got a harder schedule. Sorry, some years the NFC East is really good and gets 3 teams, and some years they're down and get 1. And it's the NFC West. But we know in the NFL, if I'm in the NFC, I got to be in the top 7 if I want to get in. Or if I win my division, I'm in. If not, I'm out. And they take half the teams. And so to me, that's where 24 is the cleanest to make everybody happy. You get 2 weeks of on-campus games. You get conference champions, and really everybody that makes it in the top 4 in their league in. So it matters longer for more teams. You get larger representation. You play it on the field. You only extend the season 1 game, and that's only for the 2 teams that play at the end, right? So more access is good for student athletes, for fan bases, for TV, for leagues, you know, and it's just going to make our game better and better. So somewhere between 16 and 24, but like it's just It just needs to be even, and then let the teams decide it once they get in there.
And you're essentially talking about an NFL model where the NFL earns it. It's not based on rankings. So, Rhett Lashlee here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I have one final thing from me, and then I'm going to let you do rapid fire, but you're going to put me on the hot seat because you've been so great as always to answer my questions. You, Pittsburgh, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, 5-1. But here's the crazy thing. You don't play any of them. So how the heck is the ACC going to figure this thing out if y'all keep winning? So I'd love to get your thoughts on this as we, at the time of our conversation, have a 5-1 Georgia Tech, a 5-1 Virginia, a 5-1 Pittsburgh, and a 5-1 SMU.
Yeah, well, the fact that we lost a conference game, we don't control it. But we do control if we there's like probably 6 or 7 scenarios that get us in there, I think. And they all start with we have to win our next 2 games.
Right.
So we have to beat Louisville, really good. We have to go on the road at Cal, who just beat Louisville, who's got a stud freshman QB. If we win those 2, then it'll probably work itself out. If we don't, it won't. But here's what I'll say. Coming into this season, everybody made a big stink about our schedule last year being easy. Well, Florida State was kind of down. We missed Clemson and Miami. Okay. Well, this year when we started the season, of the top 5 teams in the ACC last year, we were playing the other 4. You know what I mean? But now we get to this point and none of those teams are in that. We beat Clemson and Miami, but like it just shows you the parity of our league, that it's not top heavy. But there's some simpler paths for us to get in on who needs to win and who needs to lose. But the only one I know that's consistent is SMU has to win the next 2 to even be in the conversation. So,
yeah, and there is certain things like teams that lost to Louisville, but if you beat Louisville, so that's going to help you out in common opponents and whatnot. So, Rhett, with that being said, you get to ask me a trio of questions. That's how we're going to end this SMU spotlight. The coach that never gets to ask questions gets to ask questions here on Wake Up Call. It's always been that way. So you get 3 questions to ask me, Rhett. What do you got?
All right. Should the playoff be 12, 16, or 24?
Man, I was good with 16, but now that you told me 24, I'm like, it's more representation for those outside of the autonomy group. It's still a representation for Notre Dame, which that they would have to have that if they do anything. And I think the only way to if you want Notre Dame to join a conference, all you have to do is tell them they're not eligible for the college football playoff. That's the
I know,
easiest.
but they'll never do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, they're never going to do that. But if they did, they'd probably be in the Big Ten, and we'd see them move forward from there. But I'm fine with 16, but I like your thought of 24 because it keeps the 16 model of the divisional thing and make everybody play it out in the Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and SEC, gives everybody equal footing. And then at the same time, it provides more access, because I think there needs to be access. Like to have the college football playoff grow and the American still get disrespected, the American has talent in it because you were in that conference. So when you got a year like this year with South Florida and Memphis, East Carolina still got an opportunity to get in there. But I mean, you look at North Texas, South Florida, Memphis, and Tulane, and one of those teams is going to get in, which means that James Madison's probably not going to get in. So I think there needs to be more representation. Plus, there needs to be divisional equality between the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC. So you've convinced me of the 24 model. I'm totally fine with the 16, but there has to be more fairness and expansion, because if we continue to expand with no fairness and it has nothing to do with what you do on the field and it's just people having opinions and having biases, then what does expansion mean if nothing is done better than it was before?
In year 1 of the 12-team playoff, you see how it has already benefited Indiana, SMU, and Arizona State. Indiana's not Indiana this year if they hadn't got in last year, and they wouldn't have been in if they hadn't expanded. So, all right, let me ask you this: straw or no straw when you're drinking a drink?
What kind of drink?
Some with ice, something with ice in it, not like a smoothie or a malt, just a normal beverage, whatever is your choice.
After COVID and all these dirty people out here that I know don't wash their hands, I'm using a straw.
Have you ever been skydiving?
No, but
Do you want to?
Yes, my mother surprised me that she said that she actually wants to go skydiving with me, and I didn't think that she would do it. So Mom said she wanted to go skydiving. So I mean,
But would you do it?
Yeah. I don't live with fear, Rhett. You know, God is my God, and He's on the throne every day. So I don't live with that fear that
Amen.
maybe other people have. Rhett Lashlee, SMU Mustangs. Make sure you go out and watch them and support them. This has been an SMU Spotlight. Rhett, you've always been good to me, and I appreciate you for that. I appreciate our friendship more than everything on the air, and I appreciate it both. So thank you for your time, and thank you that whenever I reach out to you, you always reach back. You've always been a person that, as your team has grown and your profile has grown, you've remained consistent to the people that have been consistent with you. And that is probably one of the best traits that I appreciate about you.
Appreciate you, Dan.